You know the truck. It is white, and it is very clean, and it has a name painted on the side of it in a friendly color, and there is a little cartoon bug on the door with his legs up in the air. The man gets out with a tank on his back and a hose in his hand, and he walks the outside of your house, and he sprays along the bottom of your walls, and he sprays around your door frames, and he is finished in about 11 minutes. Then he leaves a paper hanging on your doorknob, and he drives away. And you paid him. And here is the part that ought to sit in your chest a moment. You will pay him again next month, and the month after, $800 a year, some folks $1,000, some folks $1,200, and not once, not for a season, but every single year for as long as you own that house. Ants in the spring, roaches when it warms, fleas when the dog comes in, silverfish in the bathroom in August. It never ends because it is not meant to end. A thing that ends cannot be billed monthly. Now, there is a white powder that sits on a shelf in the feed store in my town, and it is soft as flour, and a bag of it costs about $4. $4. And that powder will kill any crawling bug that walks across it. Not sicken it, not repel it, kill it, and it does that without one drop of poison in it, and it does it in a way that no bug on this earth can ever get used to. $4 against $800 a year, and the bag has been sitting there on that shelf the whole time. My name is Amos. I am Amish, and I farm a valley in Ohio. My grandfather kept a bag of this powder in the barn and another bag in the hen house, and I never once in my whole childhood saw a man in a white truck come up our lane. Today I am going to tell you exactly what that powder is, and I am going to tell you the thing that even most folks who use it cannot tell you, which is what it actually is and where it came from. Then I will show you how it kills and how to buy the right kind, because there are two kinds and one of them you must never bring in your house. Then how to lay it, and the 4 mistakes that make people say it does not work when it works perfectly. Then how to keep the bees safe, because that matters. And at the end I will tell you why you have never heard of it, and I promise you the answer is not what you think. So, what is it? The bag will say Diatomaceous earth, which is a mouthful of a name and tells you nothing, and most fellows will stop there and tell you it is just a mineral you dig out of the ground, like clay or like chalk, and leave it at that. But that is not the truth of it, and the truth is far stranger, and once you know it you will never forget how this works, because the how and the what are the same story. That powder is a graveyard. Millions of years ago, in the water, there lived a little plant so small you could not see it. Millions of them. Billions. And every single one of those little creatures built itself a shell to live in, and it built that shell out of glass. Real glass. It pulled the silica right out of the water, and it made itself a tiny glass house, every one of them different, every one of them carved and pierced and beautiful, like a snowflake that has been cut by a jeweler. And they lived and they died, and their soft parts rotted away to nothing, and those little glass houses sank down through the water and settled on the bottom. And then more died, and more sank, and they piled up on the ones before, layer on layer on layer, for millions of years, until in some places the pile of them lies hundreds of feet thick. And that is what is in the bag. That is all it is. It is a mountain of microscopic glass shells, dug up and ground to a powder. When you hold a handful of that soft white flour in your palm, you are holding the skeletons of more living things than there are people who have ever walked this earth. It feels like talcum powder in your hand. Under a glass strong enough to see it, it is a heap of broken glass, and every piece is edged and pointed. Now hold on to that picture, because now you will understand the killing, and you will understand it better than the fellow in the white truck does. A bug does not have skin like you and me. A bug is, and I want you to really hold this thought, a bug is a bag of water walking around in a suit of armor, and that armor would leak. Water would pass right out through it, and the creature would dry to a husk in a single day, except for one thing. On the very outside of that armor, thinner than anything you can imagine, there is a coat of wax. A wax finish, like the wax on an apple, like the wax on a well-kept table. That wax is the only reason a bug can walk across a hot, dry floor in July and not shrivel up. That microscopic coat of wax is the whole of his life. Now walk him across our powder. He does not eat it. He does not have to. He simply walks. And those millions of tiny glass edges score that wax. They scratch it. They cut 1,000 fine lines through the finish, the way steel wool scars a wax table. And the moment the wax is broken, the water inside him begins to leave through every scratch. And it does not stop. He walks on, and the scratching goes on, and the leaking goes on, and in a day or two, that bag of water is a dry husk, and he is dead. He was never poisoned. He never got sick. He simply dried out. And you know this in your own body better than you know almost anything. Think of your own lips in January. There is a fine natural oil on them, and the wind takes it off, and the moment it is gone, they crack and dry and split, and no amount of drinking water fixes it, because the problem is not that you are short of water. The problem is that the seal is gone. Your grandmother knew it. She put a salve on. She did not treat the dryness. She rebuilt the seal. Now imagine you could never rebuild it. Imagine the seal on you was scratched away and would not come back, and you stood in a dry wind. That is the whole death, and it is nothing but physics. And here is the beautiful part, and this is the part that makes this powder worth more than every chemical in that white truck. A bug cannot ever become resistant to it. You have heard, I am sure, that the sprays stopped working, that the roaches came back stronger. That is true, and it is not a rumor. A poison works on the chemistry of the creature, and chemistry can be answered. In any 1,000 roaches, there is one born a little different, a little able to shrug that poison off, and he lives when the others die, and every roach that comes after is his grandchild. You did not kill the roaches. You held a contest and crowned the winner. Do that for 20 years, and you have bred a roach the spray cannot touch. That is not a failure of the chemical. That is the chemical working exactly as it must. But you cannot get used to broken glass. There is no roach born with thicker wax, because the wax is not the thing. The leaking is the thing. You cannot evolve a way to not be cut. Ask yourself, could you breed a family of men who cannot be scratched by a razor? Give it 1,000 years. Give it 10,000. No, the blade does not care about your bloodline. Physics does not negotiate. And that is why this powder worked for my grandfather, and works for me, and will work for your grandchildren, unchanged, forever, while they are on their 4th generation of sprays down at the hardware store. Now here is the most important thing I will say today, and if you take nothing else, take this one, because getting it wrong can hurt you. There are 2 kinds of this powder in this world, and they look exactly alike. There is food grade. That is the one you want. That is the one my grandfather had. And there is pool grade, which is sold for filtering swimming pool water. It comes in a bag that looks near enough the same, and it costs about the same, and it sits on a shelf not far away. And that one has been cooked. They heat it in an oven to a terrible temperature to change it for the filters, and that heating changes the very nature of the glass in it, and it turns it into something that is genuinely dangerous to breathe. Not irritating, dangerous. So hear me plain. Pool grade is not for bugs. Pool grade is not for inside your house. Pool grade is not for your barn or your chicken house or your garden. Pool grade you leave on the shelf at the pool store where you found it, and you walk away from it. Turn the bag over and read it with your own eyes, and if it does not say food grade, you put it down. Food grade. Every time. It is the same price. There is no reason on God's earth to buy the other. You will find the right bag at a feed store, at a farm supply, at a garden center, and sometimes at the hardware. $4 to $8 for a bag of a few pounds, and that will do a whole house. If you have a farm, a 50-pound sack runs $20 or $30, and it will last you years. And buy yourself a little plastic duster while you are there, $2 or $3, the kind with a bulb you squeeze. You can use an old spice shaker or a squeeze bottle if you would rather. But the duster is worth the $3. Now, how to lay it. And here is where nearly everybody goes wrong, and I want to fix it before you make the mistake. Thin. A fine white film. So thin you can barely see it, so thin you would have to look twice to know it was there. Because here is the thing folks do. They think, well, if a little kills a bug, then a heap will kill him faster, and they pour out a nice white mound along the baseboard like they are icing a cake. And that does nothing. Nothing at all. Because a bug is not stupid. He comes up on a mound of strange powder and he sees an obstacle, and he walks around it, the same as you would walk around a snowdrift in your hallway. He never touches it. You have built him a wall to go around instead of a floor to walk across. You want a film, not a drift. If it looks like a nice job, you have done it wrong. If it looks like somebody dusted the room badly, that is right. So, inside, along the baseboards, behind the refrigerator and behind the stove and behind the dishwasher, where it is warm and dark and nobody has looked since the Eisenhower administration, under the sink, in the hinges of the cabinets, around the frames of doors and windows, and here is the one my grandfather taught me that nobody thinks of. Take the cover plate off an electrical outlet, just the plate, and puff a little in there into the wall cavity, and put the plate back. That powder will sit in the dark inside your wall, dry and untouched, and it will go on working for years, years. That is the highway they run on, and you have just laid glass on it. Fleas. That is the carpet and the dog's bed. Dust it thin, work it in with your hand or a broom, and leave it for a few days, then vacuum. On the animal himself, ask your veterinarian first, and do not let me be the one who told you otherwise. Bed bugs. Under the mattress, along the seams of the box spring, along the baseboards of that room. This one takes patience, and I will tell you why in a moment. Outside, along your foundation, in the garden for slugs, at the base of the plants, in the chicken house, in the corners and by the nest boxes, and the hens will give themselves dust baths in it and clean their own mites off, and it costs you nothing. And for your stored grain, about a cup to 50 pounds, mixed through, and the weevils never get started. But outside you must mind the weather. Lay it in the morning after the dew has dried off, on a day with no rain coming for a day or two, and after a rain do it again. Which brings me to the mistakes. There are 4, and every single person who tells you this powder does not work has made one of them. The first is buying pool grade. We have covered it. The second is the mound instead of the film. We have covered that too. The third is water. And this is the big one. Wet. This powder does absolutely nothing. Not less. Nothing. When it is wet, those glass edges are held down in the water and they cannot score anything, and it sits there useless as a damp rag. Dry, it lives forever. There is no shelf life. A bag of it in your barn will be exactly as deadly in 20 years as it is today, because it is glass, and glass does not go stale. So keep it dry, and keep it where it stays dry. In the wall, under the sink, behind the stove. Dry lives forever. Wet goes to sleep. And the fourth mistake is impatience. This powder does not kill the way the spray kills. There is no dramatic dying on the kitchen floor for you to look at. A soft bug, an ant or a flea or a bed bug, takes a day or two. A hard one, a big roach or a grown beetle, may take 3 days or a week. That is not the powder failing. That is the powder working, quietly, the way drying works. And here is the piece that undoes most people. It does not kill eggs. An egg has no wax to scratch and no legs to walk. So you lay your powder down, and you kill everything walking, and you feel like a king, and then 11 days later there is a whole new crop of them, and you decide the powder is a fraud, and you go call the man in the white truck. No, those are the eggs that were already there hatching out, and they are hatching out onto the glass you laid, and they are walking on it right now, and they will die too. Leave it down. Leave it down for weeks. Let 2 or 3 hatchings walk over it, and then the line is truly broken. Patience, not panic. That is the whole of the fourth mistake. Now I must speak to you plain for a minute, the way my grandfather would have, because I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. This powder is not poison. You could swallow a spoonful of the food-grade kind, and your body would pass it and think nothing of it. It is put in stored grain on purpose, but it is a fine dust, and no fine dust belongs in anybody's lungs. Not this, not flour, not sawdust. So if you are dusting in a small closed room, wear a mask over your face. It is not that it will poison you, it is that dust is dust, and your lungs deserve better. Keep it out of the air where the children are. Lay it in the cracks and the corners where a hand does not go. And with your pets, thin and away from their faces, because it will dry out a paw or a bit of skin same as it dries a bug. And the bees. Now hear me, because this is the one I care most about. This powder does not know a good insect from a bad one. It cannot know. It is glass. It does not choose. A honeybee that walks through it dies exactly the same as a roach does, and that would be a terrible thing to do to a creature that pollinates the food in your garden and asks nothing of you at all. So, never on a flower, never on a bloom, never on a blossom, never where a bee lands. If you are treating for slugs, you lay it on the ground at the base of the plant, low, in the dirt, where the slug crawls and the bee never goes. Never dust the top of a plant that is flowering. Never. The honest gardener protects the bee with the very same care he uses to kill the slug, and if you cannot do it without hurting the bees, then do not do it. There is no pest in your garden worth the bees. So now, why have you never heard of this? And I want to be careful here, because this is where a man like me is supposed to lean in and tell you there is a villain, that somebody in a boardroom buried it, that there is a conspiracy against the powder. I am not going to tell you that, because it is not true, and the truth is simpler, and I think it is almost worse. There is no money in it. That is all. That is the whole of it. There is no money in a $4 bag that solves the problem once and then sits in your barn for 20 years. There is enormous money in a monthly subscription. A powder you sprinkle and forget cannot pay a salesman's commission. It cannot buy a television advertisement. It cannot print a doorknob hanger or paint a friendly bug on the side of a truck. Nobody can build a business on a thing you buy once. So nobody built one. So nobody advertised it. So it was never said out loud. And after 2 generations of nobody saying it out loud, a whole country came to believe that bugs are a thing only a professional can handle. It is not a conspiracy. It is just the way money flows. Money flows toward what can be sold again, and it flows away from what cannot, and the truth simply sits there in the quiet where the money is not. The bag has been on that shelf the whole time, $4, saying nothing, because a bag of ground-up glass shells has no way to speak for itself. Nobody was hiding it from you. It just never had a reason to be mentioned. You are being told now. So let me set it in your hands the way you will carry it out. It is a graveyard of little glass houses, millions of years old. It kills by scratching the wax off a bug and letting him dry, so it is physics and not poison, and nothing alive can ever get used to it. Buy food grade, only food grade, read the bag with your own eyes, and put the other one down. Lay it thin like a film and never in a mound. Keep it dry, and dry it lives forever. Give it 2 weeks and let the eggs hatch onto it, because patience is the 4th of the 4 mistakes, and never, ever on a flower. Now I want to hear from you, and I mean that true. Tell me down below, which pest has cost you the most money over the years? The ants that come every single spring, the roaches, the fleas, the bed bugs that cost you a mattress, and tell me what you paid for it, all told, over all the years. And then, if you would do me a kindness, go and do this, and come back in 2 weeks and tell me what happened in your own house. I read every single comment that comes to me. Every one. And before you go, next time I am going to tell you about the thing my grandfather did about the rats and the mice in the barn. Not traps, not poison, which will kill your barn cat and your neighbor's dog along with the rat. Something else that costs about $2, and once you see it you will understand why we have never had a rat problem in 80 years. Come back for it. Until then, keep it simple, keep it honest, and keep it homemade. And remember,